Captain Jack here. Atari 2600 games continue to be pumped out every year. It's one of the largest homebrew communities out there. There's something really appealing about their shared chunky art style. And with new tools for making these games coming out, it feels like every year, it's never been easier to make a 2600 game. Atari Age has a Homebrew Awards contest held annually, and today we're looking at some of my favorites from this year's competition. I think you'll like the ones I pick, hopefully, but the link to the competition is in the description. Let's hop right in. Cave Trap is a simple little 4K game that has you jumping over 3 objects as you try to stay alive as long as possible. There's a jump counter to count how many jumps you've made, and an invincible counter that when you press the fire button, you'll be invincible for a little bit. This basically lets you save yourself if you know you're gonna die, like if you're gonna land on something. There's 4 levels here, and basically all that does is reduce the height of the ceiling to make things bounce around at a lot quicker, tighter pace, and it's very claustrophobic, and then your jumps are obviously way more limited this way. But that's about it with this one. It's a pretty simple example of a 4K game, but it works really well. Minotaur is a sort of port of Tank Battalion, an arcade game with almost the same gameplay, but I'd say this Atari port actually is much smoother. You'll use your tank to defend the yellow square from rival tanks, and shooting it, even with your own bullets, will restart the entire game. You can blast through the blocks here, so there's kind of a strategy of blasting a pathway for tanks to funnel into, and then killing them as soon as they turn into that new path you made. Of course, running out of the way if they shoot back at you. Every once in a while, a dead tank will drop a Minotaur, this floating skull thing that explodes everything around it when shot. It's pretty useful in a crowded area, or just to clear blocks on the map. Minotaur is audio-visually impressive, from the scrolling tank treads to the little drum beat in the background. Flippets is a little 4K find the odd one out game, where you have to find which Flippet is facing the wrong direction. The description says you have to find the Flippet that has turned their back on the group, which is, that's a pretty creative way to say their sprite is flipped. You'll have to find however many Flippets are listed on the left before the timer counts down to 0. And every level adds something little just to mess you up. From flashing to sprites that almost look the same flipped either way, to the flipped one changing locations. I like how detailed these little Flippets are, and it's actually a lot more fun than it looks. You can't really see this in the gameplay footage, but I'm frantically scanning the image up and down for anything odd. Punch Chess! Exclamation point. Punch Chess! As you play as a knight piece gone rogue, and you'll be knocking out every other piece that crosses your path. I don't know about the gone rogue part, but hey, a game like this needs a story. You'll be able to go up and down on the black squares in the middle, so although you can go anywhere on the playfield, you'll usually stick to where you have that mobility. Each piece only nets you 5 points, whether it's a pawn or a rook, so the faster pieces are only going to get you killed. You might as well avoid them. You have 5 lives here, and the goal is to get a high score before either the timer runs out or you lose all 5 of your knights. You know, the 5 knights that are on a normal chessboard. This one is pretty creative and has a nice title screen, especially for a 4K game. Oh yeah, it's a 4K game. Plan B Escape Earth has a lot of things going on here. It's a very unique idea. You have to protect the people running across the bottom of the screen to get into the ship, and at least 5 people must be saved by the time the city below the force field has taken 8 hits. At first it's fairly easy, but every level an element gets added, like this octopus that crawls across the ground and eats people. Once it gets down there, the only way you can kill it is by dropping this rock on it, which you can also use to repair the force field. There's this guy that can stun you that gets added after that. It's a multitasking game, really. I like how complex it is for a 2600 game. The full release has multiplayer and a harder difficulty mode, which sounds pretty nice because it does take a second for the difficulty to really set in. Terra 7 has a lot packed into it for a game that is exactly 4,000 bytes. Or 4K, we call it 4K. You'll have to get the satellite to the other side of the screen while keeping your robot alive, and he starts with 5 hit points. It looks at first like you're just going to have to avoid the ships and asteroids, but that's where the tricky part comes in. The satellite moves at a glacial pace, so you'll have to blast through the ships to collect batteries in order to speed up this whole process. You're going to have to decide between being more aggressive and making the satellite faster, or just hiding out in a corner of the screen. Which, I guess you can do that. Shooting the S symbols, which stands for Smart Bomb, clears the stage, and touching the E, which I think stands for Energy, gives you another hit point. But the people floating by are your biggest concern. Letting them float by or shooting them makes you lose a hit point. You'll have to touch them to save them, which just means you don't get hurt. There's a lot of strategy to this one, and it might be the best 4K game I've played in a while. Tumblers is a masterclass of Atari programming. It's the only 2K game on this list. 2K! What is that, like half of 4K? It's also literally the size of the launch titles for the Atari 2600. Imagine seeing Combat, then Video Olympics, then this game on a shelf in 1977. It would have blown your bell bottoms off. In Tumblers, you'll use the cube key to unlock all the electronic locks. If it's a bit hard to tell, the cube key is a 6-sided cube with green, blue, and red sides, with all of the same colors on opposite sides. And you'll have to roll your cube into the color bands while landing on the right color, because if you don't, it'll add another layer of blocks to the mix. It's a game where you really have to be spatially aware, but Tumblers really tries to help you figure out what color is going to be rolled to next. If you stand still, the color on the top and bottom sides start to show, and you can press the button to rotate your cube in case you need better alignment. You might think this makes the game easy, but it starts to add different colors than just the regular 3. The dark version of each of the 3 colors have different extra penalties for failing them, like dark blue killing your square and making you start over. Then there's yellow, which makes you slide around, really messing up your calculus on which side's gonna land on top. I don't think I've ever seen a 2K game like this with this much variety. It takes a second to figure out, but Tumblers is cerebral and good looking, in a sort of abstract sort of way. Tutankham Arcade is another one of these wonderful conversions by Champ Games, a very famous team in the Atari 2600 scene. The funny thing is, with this one, there already was a port of this game on the 2600, which, as you can see, it's not much, no. But this new version is almost completely faithful. You'll blast through various Arabian creepy crawlies as you make your way to King Tut's mask. You can only shoot horizontally here, you'll have to remember that, because you could get boxed in vertically if you're not careful. The game has you shoot forward while pressing the button and holding the direction you're moving. But if you let go of that direction, you'll kind of slide, and pressing the button then lets you shoot behind you. That's the control scheme with a basic 1-button controller. But the game supports both using a 2-button controller or white-knuckling 2 Atari joysticks. And that fixes this slightly awkward control scheme. This one actually goes above and beyond the arcade, with double the amount of levels and different difficulty modes with additional enemies and treasures. Even if you've never heard of the original Tutankham Arcade game, like me, still give this one a try. It's extremely high quality. Thanks for watching.